Greetings again. The purpose of this video is to help you make corrections on your final assignment of the year, the daycare FRQ. For the benefit of those of you who only missed one or two, I'm going to start at the end because the most missed points were those towards the end. The hypothesis, for example, was impossible. Nobody got the point. This does happen, by the way. Every few years there's a point on the AP exam, FRQ, that either no one or almost no one gets. And in those cases, it doesn't really count against you, because if nobody gets it, then it doesn't change your relationship between you and your peers. So the reason that nobody got the hypothesis is all of you assumed that the data supported his hypothesis because the children did recognize the new shapes better as they got older. But if you read his hypothesis, he said that growing older would cause them to recognize the shapes. And because they use the word cause, and because this is not an experiment, there were not two randomly assigned groups, or these groups were not randomly assigned. They simply compared the different age groups. And so that is a nasty question. I would never put that on any of my assessments. If I did put it on there, I would certainly not count it, but you need to make the correction. The main point here, and this is something the College Board comes back to year after year after year, is they're trying to hammer home the idea that correlation is not the same as causation. This scientist clearly demonstrated a negative correlation between age and the speed at which kids could recognize the shapes. As they got older, they did it faster. It took less time. But that does not mean causation. Common sense tells you that there's causation, but it's not an experiment. So it was a trick question, but this is the kind of thing that they do periodically. The main idea here is that correlation is not the same as causation. So the hypothesis was not proven. Next, the next most missed part of this was replication. Almost all of you understood that replication would be doing the experiment again. But did you read it carefully? It said, how could he replicate it to make it better? So unless you made a suggestion for how he could make it better by including more kids, they only had 5 kids per age, using a different daycare, using random sampling, something. If you offered any suggestion for making it better, I gave you the point. But most of you just simply said replication means that he would need to do it again to verify that his results were not a fluke, which is true, but it didn't answer the FRQ. And then the final part, I'm supposing that either you ran out of time or more likely, some of you didn't see the final point. The final point was, how would 3-year-olds react differently than 8-year-olds by putting a blanket over one of the objects? And most of you who saw it and had time to get to it got it right. The 3-year-olds would cry and think it was gone forever because they might still lack object permanence, whereas the 8-year-olds would be more likely to keep looking for it or simply lift the cloth to find the object underneath the cloth. Object permanence was the answer to the final point. And I think many of you missed it because you just simply didn't see it. It was detached from the other points. So those are the last 3 points, and those of you who missed 1 or 2, you can probably turn this video off now because the first 4 points were much easier to get. Starting with habituation. Habituation means that once you get used to something, you don't notice it, you pay less attention to it, and this was demonstrated in the fact that after the kids looked at a particular object for a while, they started to lose interest in it. The mode for 3-year-olds was 15 seconds. Why? Because out of the 5 3-year-olds, 2 of them took exactly 15 seconds. The other 3 had different times that didn't match. So what is the mode? The mode is the most common or most frequent response or score. And there was only one score that occurred more than once, and that was 15 seconds for a 3-year-old to identify that there was a new object. So the mode was 15 seconds. The correlation was negative, right? It was a negative correlation. As kids got older, the time it took to identify or recognize a new shape got less, right? You either had to use the term negative correlation or describe that as one thing got greater age, the other thing got lesser time. The dependent variable is the thing being measured. The time it took for the kids to identify the new shape, right? Recognizing the new shape was the dependent variable. The independent variable was the age. Does age affect the speed at which they can recognize a new shape? The thing that you're manipulating to see if it's causing a change is the independent variable. They were asking for the dependent variable, that is, the thing being measured. And in this case, the thing being measured was the time it took to recognize the new shape. All right, so that's it for things that are going to be graded and turned in. I'm going to be posting lots of stuff for you to look at next week that can help you to get prepared for the exam. I know some of you have other AP exams that you'll be really focusing in on and maybe cramming for, so I wish you luck on those. I hope that you're all staying safe and healthy. If I can help you in any way, reach out to me and let me know how.